We apparently have a few more minutes than we supposed to have, so I'm just going to do a little quick, show of hands here. How many of you are here at the French Symposium for the first time? All right, not bad. How many have been on the French Symposium last 2 times? Okay, 3 times? 4 times? Okay, so those 4 times that you raised your hands, you're the people that are wondering who in his right mind let this guy go on stage every year, right? Okay, so because this is my 4th time in France, and I'm really enjoying it here. Okay, so we're going to be talking about the community today. And for those of you who are here for the first time, let me introduce myself. My name is Milen Dyankov, and I'm a developer advocate at Liferay. And what does that mean is that I pretty much get to worry about whether the things that we do are appropriate for the people that end up using our products. That's why I try to go out to events like this, talk to people like you, to figure out what are we doing good, what are we doing bad, what we can do better, and things like that. And trust me, I know the feeling. You look at someone on the stage and oh my God, this guy is oh, whatever the title says. And yeah, well, it wasn't always like this. I've been on the other side. I've looked at people standing on the stage thinking the things that you're thinking now. It turns out that it's actually not a big difference. We all people, we all do stuff. So I decided to take you for a little journey back in time. Firstly, back to 2009. Do you know what important happened in 2009? I'll tell you what. By the way, in 2009, Barack Obama was elected for the President of the United States. No, but that's not the important thing. The important thing for me back then was that I was working on a thing that I called Liferay Maven SDK. And I was using Maven heavily at the time. I was working with a Liferay partner company. I wasn't with Liferay, the company, but working with the product. And there was no support for Maven at the time. So I just said, OK, I need that. Let me figure out if I can do something about it. And yeah, Liferay Maven SDK happened over a few nights. And then I got to know people like Mika Koivisto and Thiago Moreira from Liferay. And we start talking about stuff. And a couple of years later, there was an official support for Maven in Liferay. Well, maybe not exactly my code, but the things kind of got into the product, which made me ultimately very happy. Let's move to 2011. What important happened in 2011? Well, the non-important thing is these folks at CERN figured out there are particles that travel faster than the speed of the light. The important thing that happened is I started at my work back then at the partner company dealing with a lot of companies that wanted to use stuff on mobile devices. And back then, mobile devices were nothing like mobile devices today. So if you wanted to do something really interesting on mobile devices, you had to download something on the particular device. But to download something on a particular device, you had to know what the device is. And this is how the multi-device extension was born. It was out of necessity to try and figure out what device the current visitor of the website uses. And yeah, once I did that, I was like, OK, so what I'm supposed to do with that now? So I contributed it back. And since Liferay 6.1, I believe, it's now standard functionality. It comes with the product. I don't have to maintain that thing anymore, which makes me extremely happy. 2013. Anyone willing to take a guess what important happened? I'll skip the non-important part. I was working on my new, at the time, discovery called Elasticsearch. And I remember I get back from some event, and I was telling everyone around the company how excited I am about this Elasticsearch thing, and they were like, yeah, sure, we have Solr. And so I was doing a training in Germany. I was with Liferay, with the company at the time, but working with global services and training. And if you think that being an employee at Liferay and not part of the core engineering team makes it any easier to contribute code than it is for you, you're pretty far from the truth. So I was like, okay, let's figure this out. I had 3 nights during my training times in Germany, so I just prototyped the Elasticsearch extension. And then some people like Mike Han got back to me a couple of months later, and they said, hey, can I have a look at your code? And as you know, we now ship with Elasticsearch. 2015 is another unsuccessful experiment that I had, which was my first attempt to actually Dockerize Liferay, and I actually created this thing called Liferay CDL. That was a command line tool to actually run Liferay from a Docker images. This never made it any popular, but also inspired a few ideas about how to do stuff with Docker. And then back to 2017, like we're getting closer and closer to today. This is after the time we released a new product called WeDeploy. And I was playing around with things like Java client for WeDeploy and Milen plugin for WeDeploy. So we reached the time where you are now all arguing, like, who let this guy on stage to brag about himself? Yeah, you're absolutely right, except it's not about me. It's all about you. You could be doing this. You could be on this stage next year or any other stage, any other time, and you can be telling about the stuff that you've done. There's nothing really hard about it. And guess what? We want you to be these people. We want you to take stuff in your hands and do it. It's good to complain, like we do a lot of wrong things. I get it, I admit it. Trust me, I'm the one who complains a lot. But it's sometimes good to just get the stuff in your hands and just do things. And then just say, hey, look what I got. And maybe it's useful for other people. So as Seth Godin says, you can either fit in or stand out, but not both. So you get to choose which role you want to be in. Whether you're going to be just the consumer or whether you're going to do something about it and actually help other people, actually make other people benefit from the stuff that you've done, and then be proud of yourself and get to enjoy your 5 minutes of glory. Because, see, it's not what you look at, it's how you see it. You can look at a product and say, oh, this product doesn't have this, I can't use this, and this is slow, and this is wrong. And you may be 100% right. But then you may look at the same product and say, okay, here's a missing feature that I have the knowledge to develop, to build, to provide. And if you don't look at the offering of today, but where this goes, like what this could be in the future, it's all of a sudden a totally different picture. And I know what you're going to say. Yeah, we know your picture. You're all about DXP, and you shifted from like developer friendly to commercial. And yeah, I've heard it all. And I'm not really going to disagree with any arguments that you may have. We've invested a lot of time in the last couple of years to actually make the product, to bring the product to the place where we can compete with the big players in the market. And to do this, we had to do a lot of things. We had to optimize all kinds of processes around that, like everything from like engineering to marketing, operations, training, consulting, HR even, you name it. Like it's been a significant effort to actually make sure that what we deliver is actually a good quality product that can compete with the biggest players out there. What we didn't invest too much in the last years is what we should have. It's you, the community. And this is what we're trying to do now, starting from like a year ago when we created the developer relations team. We are trying to put you, the community, back in the developer seat. And that's why we need you more than ever now to work with us to make this product, and not only this product, but all of the products, better, not only in terms of marketing competition and Gartner and whatever Forrester and whatever the ranking is, but to make them better for you, for your everyday life, so you feel more comfortable working with them, so you have more, you can solve more problems with them. And for this, we need you to get involved, at least at minimum, to tell us what is it that you need, how we can help, but even better if you can contribute back. Because, as I like to believe, Liferay is still the open source company. We always been. I started working with Liferay, the product, back in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the things that I liked a lot was the open source spirit and the attitude of the people behind it and everything about open source. And as Linux Storeworld says, in open source, to feel strong and to do something well, you really need a lot of people. A lot of people needs to contribute, and a lot of people needs to give feedback to get things done. So one of the first things that we did when we established the developer relations team was to record this video, which I'm not going to play today, but you can find it online. The video is about how Liferay employees, engineers, trainers, people who work with software, how they feel about open source. And this was totally developer relations initiative, not a company marketing kind of thing. And those people are basically our friends, so we just set up a camera and ask them to say what they think. So this is not directed to bring any particular message. We were just curious to see what people have to say. So if you want to see the video, please go to thecommunity.liferay.com. Down, I think on the bottom of the page, you will see the video. I'm going to be talking about the community.liferay.com a little bit more in the upcoming minutes, but essentially, how many of you are familiar with that website, by the way? How many of you have been there? Like, not a lot of people. Yeah, so this is the new space, the relatively new space. It's been about a year since we launched for the community. And one of the main reasons to launch this new website was to basically show you what we are doing in the area of open source. So one of the most important part there is the list of all of our projects. And if you look into that, you will see that it's no longer only the portal. We already are a company that has a lot of open source projects, and this number will probably grow, maybe not significantly, but it is expected to grow. We may give up on some of those as we figure out that they don't really serve the purpose they were supposed to serve. But at the same time, we are working on more things that are probably going to show up here. The most significant new project that you probably have heard of is WeDeploy. How many of you have never heard of WeDeploy? Okay, a few people. So I highly recommend you to check it out, especially if you are into the cloud and easy deployment kind of thing. WeDeploy was started like a couple of years ago, and I think it's production ready since a few months. It basically makes it stupid simple to deploy applications, APIs, and backends in the cloud. So whatever you do, whether that's a web service or a mobile app or an IoT something, it is a really well taught in terms of simplicity backend. To just make it clear, because I get the question a lot, it's not the goal of WeDeploy to compete with AWS or Google or Microsoft Azure or any of those guys. It is for developers to make them life easier and to actually allow people to just launch applications very quick and scale them. One of the other things that you probably heard of is Metal.js. You probably use it one way or another because it's part of the portal. And Metal.js is yet another open source project that is used outside of the portal as well. And one of the biggest advantages for Metal.js is the fact that you can actually do both client-side and server-side rendering, and it kind of decouples you from the popular JavaScript frameworks, and at the same time allowing you to work with any of those, whether that's Angular or React or whatever's the most cool thing next day. What you may heard of and may never used, how many of you are designers in the room? Any designers? No, okay, so that's probably of less interest to you. But at the end of the day, one of the major things about Portal and about web applications always been consistency. And consistency of the look and feel is one of the things that we've been struggling with for many, many years. So we finally ended up doing Lexicon. And Lexicon is a project that has nothing to do with software per se, but it is a design language. It's basically trying to define things like how they should look like, how the user experience should be, and what people should do, how they should interact with the system, and so forth. If you're familiar with things like paper design from Google, it's kind of the same thing, except this is more optimized for the heavy user interaction, user administration kind of applications. So Lexicon basically gives you the guidelines. It tells you how to build a UI in a way that is perhaps good for people to interact with. But as I said, there is no software behind it. The software behind it is one of the options. It's Clay. Clay is the web implementation of Lexicon. So if you want to do web apps by following the Lexicon rules, Clay is the thing you can use. Now, Clay is super cool because it is a kind of a framework that allows you also to do those things in many different ways. Now, you probably don't see it on the screen, but you can have a look at the slides later. You can actually build those things as a soy template. This is essentially what Metal.js use, like the Google, what's called the Google library. But you can do stuff like with pure HTML, or you can even use web components, which is the thing that currently is really like growing in the internet, modularizing the front-end part of the things. So you have all these options, like whichever one you want to choose, you can do it with Clay. And there can be other implementations. So here is like a challenge for you. If you want to do another implementation, like for mobile or whatever, or desktop for Lexicon, hey, here you go. It's a perfect opportunity. There are also some stuff that we're working on that it's not on the project list. Like well, yeah, there's only one track, so you probably all seen Daniel's session about evolvable APIs and hypermedia. So we are working on that as well. One website that we already put online, it's evolvableapis.org. And then we are collecting there the practices and the techniques for evolvable APIs. We're also going to have a website for Appio coming up, I don't know when, but it's work in progress currently with the specific implementation. So Appio will be an implementation of parts of this evolvable APIs concept that we are working on. So that's another field for you to jump in, as this is very new, as we are spending a lot of time figuring out concepts and best practices. If you think that you have any expertise in that field, or if you think that you can bring up some valid concerns or questions, please do so. We would very much like to see how our ideas reflect your daily, developer life, and how your needs can bring us to a point where we can deliver more stuff or better stuff to you. Okay, so enough for tiny little projects. Let's go back to the big beast in the room, which is the portal, and probably the thing that brought you all here. So as you've known, there is a website that has existed for quite a while. It's called dev.liferay.com, and we officially made that the home of the Liferay portal. So you can see it updated, saying Liferay portal, and we have the documentation, the marketplace, the community. Well, community stuff's probably going to move to the community website, but basically it's a place where you get all the information related to Liferay portal, starting from like some documentation for different versions. We already have the 7.1 documentation, which is beta and keeps evolving, but still, but you know, it's already there. We even have some video tutorials there, like this one is for the Liferay IDE. Again, have a look into that and let us know how do you like it, what do you want to change there, and what could there be made better or more helpful. One other thing related to the portal is we try to fix the mistakes we've made in the past, and one of those is bringing clustering back, which is probably not the news because it happened some time ago, but in case someone hasn't heard about it, we did brought back the clustering to Liferay CE, and it is a different clustering than the one found in DXP, but we ultimately felt that we shouldn't limit our CE for like users from setting up Liferay clusters. It's only available as a source code. You have to compile it, but given that we are all developers, you should probably have no issues with that. And there is a whole blog post on that by Brian Chang. You can read it on the community website. One other thing that may concern you a bit is that we are actually very heavy on modularization, and if you've looked into the GitHub repo, you may have realized that the number of repositories for com.liferay is actually growing, and I get the comments often that this kind of scary a bit people who are trying to contribute because it gets a little bit more complicated now, like which repo, where the code is, and so forth. So we are still working on improving the process, but we've done already some improvements internally, like how we handle pull requests and Jira issues and stuff like that. So at least it should no longer be the case that if you submit something, it remains unnoticed. We already have a process in place that ensures that every contribution is taken care of, which does not mean accepted. It means taken care of. And you can read about that on our updated contributing policy, which is also on GitHub. If you have any questions or any concerns, or you just simply don't understand how things works, you can reach us at any time. And I'll give you the developer relations email at the end of the presentation. So feel free to contact us at any time with any issues that you may encounter. The ultimate idea behind all these activities is to avoid this situation, which used to happen, unfortunately. So that's what we don't want, and we're trying to fix that. Anyways, one other thing that you may have heard, because it was announced at DEF CON last year, but I would like to emphasize that, is we are aiming at releasing Portal CE quarterly. And in fact, we've been doing that for the last 2 releases. We sometimes have a little bit of a delay, things happen, but ultimately, you can expect a new CE release every quarter. Those are the 2 most recent releases. 7.1 Beta 2 was released on May 29, and 7.0 GA7 was released on May 22nd. So expect the I'm not sure how about 7.1. I'm not sure if we're going to have beta 3 or it's going to be final release after that, but it's going to be like eventually in time soon. And next quarter is probably going to be another GA of 7.0, hopefully. Again, those are not promises. Those are just following the assumptions that we've made for these products. And while we are on the portal, there are a few other things that you may want to get involved. Like, how many of you have heard the 7.1 community beta program? All right, a few people. Well, I'm kind of sad to see that because I thought we announced it like heavily, but it apparently didn't reach out to you guys. The program is almost at the end right now, but it's never too late to join. We do this with pretty much every new release. We want people to actually get their hands on the release before it's official, like with the betas and alphas. And provide feedback. And this program has been running for about a month or two now with a lot of positive feedback from positive in a sense for us. So we can look into it and figure out, oh, we never thought of this use case. Oh, yeah, that's a serious bug. So things that we may have missed otherwise were pointed out by people who actually try it. And it's if ultimately it's in your best interest, because if you discover an issue after the product is released, it may actually take longer to be fixed, and it may cause your own projects to have delays. Whereas this is a safe environment. Just get it, apply your own projects on it. If it doesn't work, just yell at us and say, this doesn't work, fix this. And it's both beneficial for us and for you. So I encourage you to participate in those activities as much as you can, as much as time allows. But at the end of the day, again, it's ultimately beneficial for your project. The other activity that was launched recently, and I know we're changing our minds quite like every once in a while about this, but we just changed again how we do translations. So this is the crowd-in platform that we are now using for translations. The platform itself it's not ours. We're just using it, and it's dedicated for translations of projects. It has a very nice user interface and fine-grained permissions, so you can have proofreaders and stuff. And our internal departments have been working on actually integrating it with the build process in Liferay. So things that have been happening in the past, like people spend the time and effort to translate stuff and then it never makes it into the portal, should never happen again. Eventually, if you want to help in the French translation, for example, or whichever other language you speak, and something goes wrong, like the proofreaders will get back to you to fix it, but ultimately once it is in the platform in Crowded, it should get automatically in the product. So we are really looking forward to actually see more and better quality translations for upcoming releases. That's pretty much all about Portal. So I'm going to take the rest of the time to go back to the community website. So this is the place where you find a lot of things related to community announcements, projects, and things like that. And one thing that you will notice is that this site is actually not running on Liferay. It uses our technologies. And from day one, this has been one of the things that people pointed out, like, hey, how come your own community website is not running on Liferay? Two reasons for that. This is how it looks like, basically. Two reasons for that. The first is that we wanted to have something really, really quick. Like we had a meeting, I think it was like January 2017, where we figured out like what we want to have on that, and I think a couple of months later the site was up and running. So we wanted it quick. The second thing is we wanted it on Liferay CE. And the reason we wanted it on Liferay CE is because there's a lot of people out there that are using Liferay CE and they don't get any other support from, like, they're not paying customers. And we wanted to actually, as a developer relations team, we are kind of feeling the need to help these guys out, but we only can help these guys out if we feel the same pain. So we said, if we're going to build this on Liferay, we're going to build it in CE, so we can face the exact same challenges that these people out there facing building stuff on the CE. And Yeah, you can imagine the two, like get it quick and get it on CE and get it secured and all the stuff doesn't really work together. So we figured out we're just gonna put something out and then we gonna take the time to actually go through all the processes about properly deploying stuff on CE. And I was really hoping to announce here today that the new community.liferay.com is running on Liferay CE. Unfortunately, it's still not because it's Jamie Simon's baby. Jamie Simon spent a lot of time, my colleague from the developer relations team, spent a lot of time working on this. And just before we released, he had to take care of another baby, like a real human baby. So we kind of postponed the release. But because the news has been already published on Twitter, and it's going to be probably easy for everyone else to find it, we do have a UAT version that is actually running on Liferay CE. So if you want to look at it, how it looks, how it works, you can go to community-uat.liferay.com, and this is what's going to be live in a couple of weeks from now, I hope. The major changes, we're moving blocks there. So all the technical blocks from liferay.com will now be on the community website where they actually belong. And one of the things that it took so long is not the building the site itself, but all the migration processes that we had to implement to actually move those things. And we're also moving forums there. So everything now is going to be on the new community home, and I really encourage you to get involved, write some blogs, be active on forums, on the community side. And the good news is all this works on top of WeDeploy. So it is WeDeploy with Docker containers and Liferay Community Edition on top of that. So we're really proud that we could actually build the thing in a very small team. We're literally like 2-3 people. That actually works using all these technologies. So I'm hoping we will announce this in the upcoming weeks, but for you to know, you can look at the UAT already. So that online stuff is all great and cool, but we don't want to limit it to that. And one thing we realized when we met last year and we were trying to figure out like, hey, what to do with, with all these people out there that are like looking for us to help them out is that there is nothing like personal contact. So we really want to emphasize on that, and we really want to encourage everyone to actually meet from time to time, have a beer, have a coffee, have a discussion, figure things out together. This is the environment where get the ideas, get the atmosphere that you can never have online. So one thing we did is we started to create so-called Liferay user groups. You probably know that we had this concept in the past, but it was kind of frozen or inactive, or I'm not sure what the proper word is. So we decided to reactivate those, but only there where they're actually active and there is actually an interest for people to meet. So if you go to wait a second, the Meetup, we decided to use the Meetup platform for that because this seems to be the most popular tool these days among people to organize meetups. So if you go to the meetup.com/Liferay, this is basically a map of all the user groups that we currently have around the world. We are giving up on some user groups. We are adding new user groups. Like recently, there was a new user group was created in Portugal. So this is like constantly changing. What's the biggest interest for you is probably the Liferay France user group. How many of you are members, by the way? 1, 2. Like the rest of you, what are you waiting for? Like, these guys hang out, they have fun, they talk Liferay, they drink beer, it's super cool. They just had a meeting like in April discussing 7.1 milestone. and stuff like that. So you should definitely be involved there. Meetup is cool because it allows you to suggest topics and stuff, and I'm pretty sure the organizers will be more than happy when you start throwing ideas at them and start meeting together and discuss things about like how to make things better or whatever. But that's all cool if you are in Paris. I'm not sure if they are planning any other meetups outside Paris. Maybe you can convince them to do so as well. But if you're someplace where you can't really have people around you to hang out with, that may be a problem. Well, actually, it's not really a problem, with today's technologies and the internet and stuff. It's just not that interactive as like a face-to-face meeting. So one thing that we also started, and that you may not be aware of, is that we also have this virtual Java Liferay user group. Sorry, still Java in my mind, which is called Dev Live. How many of you remember that we used to have this thing called Dev Live several years ago? And James Faulkner, the community manager of Liferay, was running that back at the time. Okay, not a lot of you. Well, Dev Live idea is that we do online session every once in a while. I try to keep it like every 2 weeks, but I don't make any promises on that. So we already had like several of those. The most recent one in here, we had a discussion about JAX-RS applications and OAuth 2. And before that, we had Plain Lexicon, and we had Docker and a bunch of other interesting things. So all those are online. We publish the URLs there. The upcoming one is about Liferay Commerce, if you're interested. So that's all on Meetup. That's all on the same Liferay account. So you can join that. We publish the time and the date, and you can attend like online live. You can ask questions. You can have a live discussion like via chat through with the people who are actually speaking about given thing. But if you can't, you can still watch the recordings on YouTube. There is a Dev Live channel on YouTube. So if you want to see the previous recordings or you miss a recording for whatever reason, you can always see them online. Another way to get involved online is our community chat. So we've been going back and forth with this, but ultimately the trend won, as always happens with trends. So community chat, liferay.com is our Slack. How many of you are there? No. Okay, so you should be. This is where a lot of interesting discussion happens, and sometimes what we realize is that people, if they have a very complicated questions, and they have no support, for example, they will bother to write a message on forums. But if the question is like something like simple, rather simple, I was like, I'm just gonna keep searching. With Slack, the idea is that we get people together so they can actually discuss those little things like immediately. Like, hey, how do you do this? Oh, like this. Okay, good. And if you still have more complex questions where you need to paste code and you need to explain a lot, we encourage people to actually go to the forums, write a forum post, and then just go to the Slack channel and post a link. And this pings everyone who is monitoring the chat, and then it increases your chances to get a response. Since we run this for almost a year now, we realized we have over 1,000 people there. I'm not sure what the current number is. But one interesting thing we realized is the percentage of the communication. So you can see here, this is pretty old stuff, but they vary, but not that much. Roughly 60% of the communication on Slack is direct messages. So people helping each other. And this was actually our intention. This is what we wanted to do. We wanted to get people to have a place where they can just throw a question and someone's going to say, I probably can help you with that. And they move one-on-one and discuss things as much as they need to get them solved. 30% are, to about 30% is public discussions, and about 8% is private channels, which is primarily our DevRel internal communication. Speaking of measurements, like I showed you a couple of things that we've done over the last year, but like how do we know what works and what doesn't? Well, we have this report from Slack, but other than that, you may think it's wild guessing. Like, how do you know if forums work, or how do you hey, there is also Stack Overflow. Like, how do you know what happens there? Well, we do. Because of this. It's called the community dashboard. And because we want to be as open as we can, and this is nothing to hide, it's totally open, so you can go and visit it yourself. It is a software from Bitergia that we use that actually monitors all these social networks, including Stack and our message boards and Git and Stack Overflow and stuff like that. So this is one thing that we often look at to see like what are the biggest contributors, what are the unanswered questions and things like that. In fact, we used that very tool last year at DEF CON to draw the best contributor as person and company awards. The people who were nominated and won were actually taken from this reports. So if you are interested to see how we are doing, yeah, just go there and have a look. Another thing is issues. We don't track issues with that particular tool because we actually have a dashboard in Jira itself. Now the Jira URL is a bit complicated, so I created a tiny URL for you. It's called Liferay Community Metrics. And if you go there, you will see something like this that basically indicates like what issues were reported, how many were taken care of, posts, and so forth. This is solely for Jira issues related to the library portal, not the community in general. So those are the things that we keep track on. And if you know anything else that we should keep track of, please let us know. If you find any errors or anything, we really want to hear from you. How? Developer-relations@liferay.com is the email address that every single member of the developer relations team receives the moment you send it. So it goes to me and my 5 other colleagues. So we are very, very much interested to hear from you. If nothing else works, if you don't want to go on chat, if you don't want to post in forums, you don't want to user groups, whatever, although you should be, then just drop us a line. I can assure you that there has been not a single email unanswered for the last year, and we really are dedicated to keep it this way. Like the answer may be we point you to some other resource, or we may ask you to ask another person, but we definitely don't ignore emails. So it depends also on because internally in DevRel we also have different ways, different things we are responsible for, and I don't really want to bother you, and we never actually say in public who's responsible for what. Because at the end of the day, we're a team and we react as a team. But for example, I also travel a lot. So if your question is about something that I should respond to, it may take a day or two, but you will get your response, that's for sure. Ultimately, we want to serve you better and we want you to help us do so. And the reason is, if we want to go far, we need to go together. Thank you.
Est-ce que vous avez des questions? Pas de questions?
I've got just one quick question, which is, I think, very common. Why do you have so many websites? I mean, for the community, there are so many. I'm pretty sure that we'll remember just one of them, which is community.liferay.com. And the other ones?
Yes, that is a very good question, and that is the reason for community.liferay.com to exist. So, in the past, and in the present to a certain extent, we've been just throwing things out. Oh, we created this thing, let's just put it here. Well, there's another thing, let's put it here. So we have we deploy, boom, new website. We have this, new website. And we realized that this is actually making it hard for people. It's also depends on the target group. Like for example, we deploy targets general developers. It does not limit it's not limited to people who use Liferay Portal, right? In fact, a lot of the users, the people who use WeDeploy are JavaScript developers, Node.js developers, Python developers, whatever. So from that perspective, it makes it better to have a dedicated website where we basically say, whatever your language and framework is, you're a friend. But on the other hand, with so many projects and so many things, we ended up having websites all over the place. And then you go on Liferay.com. Liferay.com is heavily focused on business customers, right? And there was honestly not a single place where you as a developer can go and figure out all the things we do. And that's the ultimate reason for community.liferay.com to exist. It's basically an aggregator for all those things. Right, so we want to keep them separated. We want them to exist as separate things to each, so each of them can address properly the target audience, right? So for example, Lexicon targets designers, right? And us, that's a totally different target group than developers, right? So we want the Lexicon team to be able to evolve their website and make it the best possible resource for designers. And the same thing, Clay targets front-end developers and so forth. So from one side, we want to have these teams to give them the ability to design what's best for them. And but everything will be aggregated back into the community.liferay.com. And ultimately, the two websites that you would need to know from Liferay perspective would be liferay.com and community.liferay.com, which will lead you to all of the other things.
Dernière question? Non? Merci Milen.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I have an announcement to make. You may be wondering what's this thing on my hand, and they just put it on my hand when I get on there. Now, apparently, you won one of those, and apparently this is going to be your entrance to something that's going to happen tonight. And if you want to learn more about it and what's going to happen there, just go outside and grab one of those whenever you get a chance. Thank you.